You want to make games, but you can't decide between Unity, Unreal, Godot, or Game Maker. Me and my buddy Greg Lobanov, and by the way, he made a ton of games, including Wandersong, Chicory, Beastie Ball, and Coin Crypt. He and I talk all about this, and his thoughts on which engine he decided to use might surprise you. Look, just because an engine is the worst engine doesn't necessarily mean it's bad for you and your indie game. This will all make sense, I promise. And by the way, regardless of the engine you choose, it's possible to take a small demo and actually turn it into a full-time paycheck. This is what I did with my demos, and it's also what Greg did. I teach all about this in a free webinar below in the description. It's my treat to you, and you're gonna learn a ton about how to build an actual profitable game studio from your bedroom before you even finish your game. That's the cool part. Click below to check it out. All right, let's jump into the conversation with Greg. But what's different about you than all the other developers is you don't use Unity. Can we shift gears here and talk about why are we using Game Maker and not Unity or Godot or Unreal?
I learned how to use Game Maker when I was 12. And I just don't like being bad at things. So every time I try to learn, I made some games, like not commercial games, but I've made games in Unity. Mm-hmm. I know the gist of it. I just really don't like it. And I'm used to the way Game Maker, I have a Game Maker shaped brain now because I just grew up with it. And I'm also fortunate that the engine has sort of grown up with me because now it's available on console ports. When I wanted to make mobile games, they did mobile ports. And so it's just always kind of been it's just always been, it's whatever I wanted to do, it always kind of worked. And I think it's been useful to my career in the long term because it has its limitations. Like, it's not good at making 3D games and stuff, but honestly, making 3D games sucks. No one should do it. And like the fact that I never was, because I just only make 2D games. I only had 2D ideas because I use a 2D game engine. Yeah. And I think that is a big reason why we were able to finish the games that we started. It definitely helps, right? That keeps things small budget and stuff. So yeah.
Well, why is it that 2D games and 3D games have a different budget from your perspective?
It's just so exponentially harder. There are so many angles. Let's say, as speaking as an art director, if you want to put something on the screen in a 2D game, the pipeline is so simple. It's like, if I want something to look like this, I draw it looking like that. I put it on the screen. That's what it looks like.
That's what it looks like. Yep.
3D is like, okay, well, like just to make a 3D asset, like that's time consuming. Like that's almost like to do a really good drawing and make a good 3D asset. A 3D asset takes longer. Then you have to skin it. Then you have to put in the game engine, and then there's questions about like lighting and shading and making sure that just on a basic technical level that everything's hooked up in the correct way. And then you have camera work to deal with as well. Mm-hmm. So just making something look a certain way is so not trivial in 3D. For every single asset has to go through so many, and then it doesn't look great, right? So then it's iterations. Like, well, why doesn't it look great? Oh, well, from this angle, this thing looks too small, or because the camera is this far away, or this close, so we have to make this higher resolution, or whatever it is, right? So it's just and then that for every single asset for years and years and years, forever. Correct. That's why. And that's just the art. That's just the art. That's not even talking about the collision and physics and
optimization. Optimization is huge. Yeah. So when we were working on Twisted Tower, I'm still working on it, but we as a team, it looked amazing. It looked so good. And then we sent it off to the QA team, and they were like, "Hey, it's running at 20 FPS on PlayStation. Just FYI, it's 20 frames per second." And so we're like, crap, okay, well, we gotta learn how to bake lights. Mm-hmm. And so the team figured out how to bake lights, and the game looks completely different. Yeah. In all the worst ways. It looks flat and boring. It's not dynamic. There's not those cool shadows being cast. Yep. Now, obviously, you could figure out how to do better light mapping, but we're a small indie team. Yeah. Point being, the whole optimization process, not only is it incredibly time consuming to figure out with 3D games, but if you don't do it perfectly, your game doesn't, like you said, it's not like 2D where it just looks like how it looks. Yeah. it changes based on the optimization principles you decide to use.
100%. Yeah. And it's very specialized technical knowledge to do a good job at any, like light mapping is one thing. And then, like the 3D culling and 3D geometry reducing and just like getting your shaders to run faster, like every little effect in every shader suddenly. Yeah. Yep. I mean, 2D has it's like we optimize stuff in 2D, and sometimes you compromise the look a little bit to optimize something 2D. But still, I feel like I have so much more control over the from start to finish what it looks like. Yeah.
When I think about Game Maker versus, let's say, Unreal,
sure.
Game Maker's like, it's like walking into a pantry and there's like, you have canned chicken, you have some bread, and some black beans, and that's your choice. And then with Unreal, it's like Cheetos, Doritos, cupcakes. But you got truffles. Truffles. You got your canned chicken though. You got it up there in the corner there, collecting cobwebs. What I'm really describing there is developers who jump into Unreal and they're like, look at all this amazing stuff. We've got real time global illumination. We've got unlimited, you don't even have to do an LOD. It's just unlimited draw distance. And we've got all these mega scans, and they're all free. And what happens is you get these massive, bloated games that all look the same with Unreal.
Right. Yeah. Actually, this is something that I've so I judge art for the IGF. I do like the visual art category. Yeah. So cool. Like on the jury, this is something we talk about a lot. And like this I don't remember who said this to me, but it was really interesting because they talked about how when the engines get really big, because like you said, like Unreal games kind of have a look to them. And even Unity games kind of have a look to them, and that comes from like mastery. So if someone has a mastery of the game engine, then the games start to look like that person, and then you can't tell what they made it in when they have total control over it. But with these really big game engines, because they are so like huge and onerous and every aspect of everything that's lit in an Unreal game is not done by you, and to have mastery over that is like such a technical skill. So it's like, especially when someone's working and they're making their first game, for example, it's going to end up looking like the engine because you don't know, like, it's like you don't know how to change half the stuff in it because you don't even know what half the stuff it's doing, right? Yeah, and this is like with 2D again, like this kind of, I think this gives you a shorter path to that kind of like that mastery thing where your vision, like your unique idea what the game should look like, tends to map out, like a lot of games that are made in Game Maker don't look like Game Maker. Yeah. I think when you like if you look at popular Game Maker games, I mean no one even knows my games are made in Game Maker anymore. People are always shocked by it. Beastie Ball has 3D stuff in it for the record. Like we put a 3D rendering. Yeah, we made 3D rendering and like 3D model loading and stuff for it. So like no one knows that it's still in Game Maker, but yeah, like it doesn't look like Game Maker, right? And it doesn't look like Unity, and it sure doesn't look like Unreal. Yeah. Like it's a weird, janky, ugly middle between all that stuff thing. And that's fun. Like it looks different. I think it has an appeal to it. Like Undertale or like Pizza Tower. Like these are games that are like, and like they're not even like they're done really well. It's not like they're done without craftsmanship, but it's just like that's an art style that is really appealing to people in a totally different way that AI wouldn't produce, right? And until Pizza Tower existed and AI could like now iterate on before it was there, AI couldn't do that, right? Yeah. So that's exciting.
What would the prompt be before Toby Fox?
Right.
What would the prompt be to say, make me a game that looks like that, like Undertale?
Yeah.
What is that even? Because like Toby Fox, for all of his talent, he made a really ugly looking game, but it's beautiful. But it's like it's using awful colors on purpose, and it creates that charm that it only can come from a singular mind.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very personal. Like that's what sings about it. Yeah. So yeah, I think that stuff will always be there. And if anything, I'm excited. I'm excited for people to like get more of a taste for that. If AI ends up diluting, showing up everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good way to put it, man. I think you're totally right. It's like suddenly it makes smaller, more personal games more valuable because they're more scarce.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exciting to me.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you've done a really good job in your career, like with your games, because they have a very, very distinct Greg style. I think you've nailed it. And you you do it with a team, which is incredible.
Sure. I was. This is something I've been talking to people a lot about this because BC Ball came out and we were sort of looking at it, and it was funny to me because the audience response is so similar to the other games I've done.
Yeah.
Like, it's like a similar size of audience with the same like level of enthusiasm, which is awesome. And it was interesting to me because before the game came out, I was thinking like, oh, this is going to be one that like it's in a popular genre and it's more designy. Like the story is a bit more compromised, and we're doing something that's a bit more like systemsy and stuff. And so like people are it's going to hit people in a really different way. Yeah. And that wasn't the case. But yeah, it's interesting because because the art style is so different between the games too. Like I thought that's what I kept bringing up. I was like, isn't it weird? Because like my games look so different. They're all different genres. And my friends out there, they're like, no, they all look like your game.
Yeah.
So yeah,
we can't get your stink off of your games.
I can't.
To use that metaphor of smell, like I would always talk about and we'll wrap up here, but I would always talk with my team about I want my games to smell the same. It's an aroma. It's this sense or this subconscious sense of like, oh, you could just spot that from a mile away. And I was just like you. I was super duper worried when we were making Twisted Tower. But if you look at Twisted Tower in its final form, it's almost in its final form. If you look at that game versus like Pinstripe or Neversong, it's like, yeah, that's Thomas's game. Even though it was a team-based game. And I think you're right. I think that it's hard to get AI to do that. It just takes human hands, even if it's a team, someone at the helm to create that Greg or that Thomas style, you know?
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Thanks so much for hanging out. This was a blast. Is there anything you wanted to leave the audience with? Obviously, we'll have the link in the description for Beastie Ball.
Yeah.
And would you like your website or your Twitter or Beastie Ball? Which one would you want to put in there?
If I was going to put one thing in there, I think people should check out Beastie Ball because that's what we're working on right now. But
cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything you want to leave the audience with?
I hope that people make games. I hope that people I think it's really fun. And it's you should try it. If you're thinking about it, you should try it. It's good stuff.
It's great. It's the one art form that is every art form. You know what I mean? It's I would say that filmmaking was every art form, but now it's game development is giving control to the audience in a film, and it is a monumental task, but that's what's so fun about it, you know?
If you like to make stuff, there's the most stuff to make in games. And you can do it all yourself, which is not true in film, but in games you get to sit down and have your hand on every part, right? And that's fun. Yep. For a certain type of person, if you're like me.
Yep, exactly. Well, cool, Greg. Thanks for taking the time, dude. This was really, really fun.
Yeah.
By the way, if you're like me and you always dreamt of making an indie game as a full-time job, I have a free webinar below that goes into exactly how to make six figures with just a demo. I was just like you for years. I thought I had to make a game in its entirety before getting a paycheck, but there's actually 3 ways to make six figures before even finishing your game. I've done this multiple times, so check it out below if you do want to go full-time indie.
And thanks for watching.